Hey folks, Randy here doing Cut and Trim. So last night, Service Autopilot did their big announcement for version 3. And it was, man, there was a lot of hype leading up to it. For those of you guys that use Service Autopilot or are on any of the emailing lists, you already know, like we got the announcement letting us know there'd be an announcement, and then we got an announcement about the registration for the announcement, and then we had like the announcements coming soon, watch it now, and so it was, the announcement was actually a live stream on YouTube, and I was watching with anticipation. I had my phone out, my wife and I were on our way to church, and opened it up and was watching it, and they had like the little blurb from Jonathan and whoever the other guy is, and then they went right into the presentation, and like 20 minutes in, the just thing crapped out. Fortunately, excuse me, they still recorded the whole presentation and uploaded it to YouTube. So I kind of listened to it last night while I was doing some other stuff, and then I watched it again this morning when I got up. And I just wanted to talk to you guys about it because for me, after hearing 2 announcements, I had 2 massive takeaways, and I'm pretty excited about it. And I took some screenshots of stuff, and hopefully you'll see them. So the first thing is, this is Service Autopilot version 3. I don't remember when they said it was coming out, but whatever. But basically, it's going to be released in 3 phases. So the first phase is going to be core enhancements. This is what's going to get released first, and that's going to involve invoices, payments, and credits. The second release is going to be streamed workflow, where there's major updates to accounts instead of, they used to be called clients and leads, and then jobs and visits, and then I guess phase 3 of this is going to be time-saving communications, and that's going to involve routes and tickets. I gotta be honest with you, most of this stuff I thought was pretty boring, and I really didn't care that much. But there are 2 things on here that I was like, blew my mind, and I'm really excited about. I'm really, really praying these things work as good as they made them look like they work. I really need these things to work. So, and one of them's in phase 1, the other, one of them's in the first release, the other one's in the 3rd release. Second release, I don't really care too much about. So the first thing that I noticed overall is just everything seems to be, it looks like they're trying to make things more intuitive and easier to use compared to previous versions of Service Autopilot. I think I've said on here before, the learning curve on Service Autopilot is brutal. Or I might just be kind of slow on the uptake, because when I trained the office manager, she actually picked it up very easily. So I might be not as fast as I thought I was, but either way, it's pretty tough. And it looks like they've done a lot to make it simpler. For you guys that use Yardbook, you know how like you go into Yardbook and it's pretty self-explanatory, and there's a lot of things to kind of help you out as far as figuring out what to do. It looks like Service Autopilot's moving that direction. There's a lot of contextual menus and things like that. I think they're going to make things a lot easier. You know, it used to be like on the invoice screen, payment screen, credit screen, all those, you know, you would have like a filter, and then like the different types of invoices, like open, closed, past due, whatever, and then the invoices underneath. Well, now the filters and things like that, it looks, and the action buttons, looks like they're all on the right-hand side. Left-hand side. And that seems to be a pretty consistent theme, right? It seems like they've gone out of their way to try and make things look nicer and be easier to use. So as far as like invoices, payments, and credits go, it just looked like it was going to be simple and not that much to get excited about, except that it looks nicer. The one thing they brought up, and I don't know why they didn't just lead with this, but they have updated the forms in a major way, and I am praying to God that it's as good as they made it look. For you guys that use it, you know, forms, like, it's just been my experience. When I'm building a form on Service Autopilot, like a form that would go on like your website to generate leads, or like a form to fill out for like when you clock into a job or something like that, you know, it was like, you basically had to fill the form out, and then test it and pray to God it worked, and it probably didn't. You know, for me, it was like 5 or 6 attempts, and it kind of worked, and then, you know, you just like, I don't know what I did, but it works now, and so I'm not going to mess with it. And it was really, they didn't look good. And so, like, for me, when I was trying to get, like, on the form on my website, the service autopilot form just wasn't good enough. And so I actually was using Yardbook. You guys that use Yardbook, you know that Yardbook has a pretty cool lead generating form with multiple steps, and it's very nice. And so I actually wireframed that into my site and was using that to generate leads off the website. And if what Service Autopilot made is as good as it looks, I'm not going to be using. I won't be using the new. I won't be using Yardbook once this comes out. They use a WYSIWYG editor. For you guys that don't know, that means it's what you see is what you get. So that's very nice, and it looks more intuitive to me. It just looks easier. But the thing that I was like, so I was already happy about that and really pumped, because now instead of looking like an old, like early 2000s form, now it looks like a modern form that you could get on like any form builder. Think things you see like with Constant Contact or MailChimp, or, you know, like things like that. It's on the same level as companies that just do this full time, if it's the way they made it look. I pray to God it is. But the thing that really blew my mind, and I pray to God that I heard him correctly. I'm doing a lot of praying because I really want this stuff to be what I thought it was. But they have created a situation where it's multi-step, multi-phased, multi-page forms. So, like, for the sake of example, you could have on your form, like for a lead generator, is this a residential or commercial property? And if they click residential, a new set of residential specific questions and fields pops up. But if they hit commercial, another type of field. So, like, you know, try to think of a better example, but like for residential, like, you know, if they say residential, you're like, okay, great. Would you be interested in, you know, mulching, et cetera, et cetera? But if they say commercial, it's like, oh, great. Do you have a parking lot that you need trash picked up? Or just, I don't know, something like that. But it's contextual. And I was like, oh, that would be amazing. If that works the way it appears that it works, that's going to be a major win. Major win for me. And then I may have heard him wrong because I was trying to find it again and I couldn't find it. It sounds like we can have account-specific forms. So, for lack of a better example, if you have a pain-in-the-butt customer who, like, you know, is like, make sure you blow off the clippings that get behind the generator. You never do that, you know, something like that. Well, before, and maybe I just didn't know what I was doing, but before, the only way I could figure out a way to make sure we did that was to create a generic form for when we ended a job with a checklist on it, including, did you blow off the clippings behind the generator, which, you know, is only applicable to one account out of 100 plus. So this way, if I heard him right, we can actually create a form specific to that client that only pops up when we service that client's house. And if that's true, that's pretty awesome. I'm going to buzz right through release 2 because honestly I didn't care about it. It looks like it's just more of part of the whole redesign. Previously we were doing clients and leads. Now that's just all combined into accounts. And it looks like if a customer moves out and somebody moves into a new house, it's going to be easy to market to that person. They kind of went over some basic things, but honestly, pretty simple stuff. It wasn't that major. If you really care, you can watch. I think the note I put, oh, and then they've changed the way routing is done, or like your scheduled jobs, but on the dispatch board it's going to be visits, and that's meant to make things less confusing. And I wrote in my notes, it's still confusing, LOL, but who cares? And then for release 3, which will be the last part of version 3 to come out, They're doing a thing called tickets, and that's going to replace to-dos, calls, notes, and then emails are actually going to get integrated into tickets. I'm glad, because to-dos, again, if this has the functionality that I pray to God it has, if to-dos were like the biggest thing that I wanted to use and didn't because it wasn't intuitive enough. I wanted to be able to like schedule to-dos, and so that like every 2 weeks when I logged into Service Autopilot, my to-do list would populate things that needed to be done. And if you guys know, like, it doesn't really do that now. If you want a to-do to come up every 2 weeks, you gotta create a to-do for 2 weeks from now, 4 weeks from now, 6 weeks from now, and so on. So I'm really hoping that they've added that in with this. They didn't talk about it. But they've integrated all this stuff. But the other thing is they've integrated emails. And so if I'm understanding correctly, and I'm probably I'm probably not explaining this right, but it's going to integrate with your email, like your business email. So for the sake of example, like for me, for my customer service at Dual and Cut and Trim, or even Randy at Dual and Cut and Trim, you can connect it and integrate it with Service Autopilot. This is only for companies that are using Gmail accounts and G Suite accounts. But if you can choose to integrate, and then let's just say Sarah emails me, it'll recognize her email address when it comes into my Gmail, and it'll add, I'm trying to simplify it in terms that even I could understand, but basically it'll create a ticket, and that email that she sends in will get logged in her Service Autopilot timeline, which is a term they don't use anymore, but just so you understand what I'm saying. And then if I respond to her, it'll all populate there. And then over the course of that conversation, if I create an estimate, it'll also show up there. And my notes from the conversations will show up there, and it'll be awesome. It'll be a really great way. Because like an issue I have now is like I send out a marketing email, and then if customers respond to it, it goes to my Gmail. Well, I might go back later and look at a customer's account, and I'll be like, I see they opened that marketing email. They seemed like they were really interested. I wonder what happened with that, because I don't remember. Even if we signed somebody up, I don't remember. There's too many. And so in that situation, I would have to go to my email, look up our conversation look up her email, see if they even responded at all, and then see what they said. But with this new feature in Service Autopilot, it would just be right in their account. I wouldn't even have to look for it. I could just see. So I could just see if you responded to like the prepayment discount email or whatever. So I'm pretty excited about this. Like the two features that have really got me excited, man, are the forms, the updated forms, which are coming out in release for the first release, and then the tickets and email integration that are coming in the third release, which I guess would be the end of the year. I think the first release is getting rolled out in February or March, I think. Maybe somebody else that was watching the stream can tell me, because I don't remember. But other than that, the dispatch board's been changed to routes. Looks cool. Ultimately, I don't really care. Editing a route looks easier, which is good. And adding waitlist jobs looks like it's easier to do, but I don't use waitlists, so that really doesn't do anything for me. Maybe I'll start. I don't know. But I'm pretty excited about this. These are some pretty major functionality additions and upgrades that, if they're implemented properly, it's going to be pretty... I'm not using the word game changer. It's so annoying when people say that, but it's going to be really great. I'll put it that way. So I'm looking forward to it. This is Randy with Dual and Cut and Trim. I should have said have a good one slower, but now I got it up, so have a good one.